Welcome to the Dynamic Political Centrism Podcast, hosted by Alan Steinberg, produced by Dr. Yonatan Yoni Yaris, the Doc. Our guest today, Jack Pruzansky, Jewish Community Development Consultant.
Good evening and welcome to the Dynamic Political Centrism Podcast. I'm the voice of Dynamic Political Centrism, Alan Steinberg. And as always, I'm delighted to not only give my views on things, but to bring some phenomenal guests. And we have an absolutely unique guest with us tonight, Josh Pruzansky. He is an individual who really has experienced, in terms of working with different groups, all the aspects of the Orthodox Jewish world. But he not only has worked with the groups, he has been a very effective representative for all these groups with the government and with various governmental agencies. Now, I always try to share a little bit of my customs and ceremonies in the Orthodox Jewish community, but nobody has a better handle on it than Josh. And as we approach the new year, Rosh Hashanah starts on Monday night, and then Tuesday and Wednesday, and then Yom Kippur the following Wednesday night. It's a time for reflection, but it also is a time where we dedicate ourselves to the new year. Now, in the year coming up, Josh has a venture that we'll talk about to start off. He is in charge of Jersey Jews for Josh, oh, geez. I said Josh, but I meant to say Jack, Jersey Jews for Jack. Jack and Josh, I confused the two. So I apologize to my viewers for that. But Josh, it's a pleasure to have you on our show.
Thank you, Alan. It's a pleasure to be here. It's an honor, not just a pleasure, an honor.
Well, I hope I'm worthy of the phrase honor, and I'm glad to have you here, and I'm sure I want to have you again. Now, tell us a little bit about Jersey Jews for Jack.
Well, Jack Ciattarelli, who's the Republican gubernatorial nominee here in New Jersey in the upcoming election for governor, is a very good friend of the Jewish community. We've not only worked with him back in 2021 when he ran the first time, but now again, the same group. We're out there. He was very close. He was 3 points. He lost by 3 points in 2021. And we hope this time he'll make it over the hump and he'll become the next governor of the state of New Jersey. For the Jewish community, we think it's a very, very positive. It will be a very, very positive thing for the community because he really has stood out as a great friend of the community, whether it's anti-Semitism, whether it's school choice and getting funding for people to help defray their high tuition costs, or Israel. He was in Israel just a few weeks ago. I met him there in Israel when I was there. We sort of met each other, and he did a great job there. He met with the prime minister. He met with all different members of the Knesset. He went to different communities. He really cares about the Jewish community. We see that, and it's natural with him. And I think he would be a great, great asset as governor for our community and for the whole state of New Jersey. I think everybody will only come out ahead if Jack wins.
I share your feelings exactly. I have an article that should be coming out within the next few days. I just finished it, where I said that I think that Jack Ciattarelli could be the greatest governor we've had since Tom Kean. And that's especially true of the Jewish community because the Kean family has been a marvelous ally and friend of ours over a century. Bob Kean, Tom Kean's father, was the person who first confronted the Holocaust, spread the message to the American, not only the Jewish community, but the general community about how our people were being exterminated in Europe. He felt that after the war that it was incumbent to establish the Jewish state. So Bob Kean, as we say in Hebrew, was a real Ohev Yisrael, a lover of the Jewish people. And I see a lot of that in Jack Ciattarelli. You know, he shares our immigrant upbringing. I am sure, and I'm not saying this to be funny, you're a grandson of immigrants like I am. You grew up in one of my favorite areas, at least it used to be, the Bronx, when it had a flourishing Jewish community. And Jack Ciattarelli, I think, is the kind of guy that you could take over to the Bronx and spend whatever Jewish communities are left. I guess it's Riverdale. I don't know so much about Pelham Parkway. I think that's changed quite a bit.
Yeah, not the same.
But whatever is left, if you gave him a tour, he would love it. And then he would give you a tour. He would give you a tour of Arthur Avenue, which is the Italian area. But because you're an immigrant, he's an immigrant. I can see where the two of you have excellent chemistry, and I think it'll be a great thing for the Jewish community if he wins. But what do you think are the really key issues for the Orthodox community in this election?
Well, there's several key issues. One key issue, if you want to talk about the economy, is the cost of living in New Jersey. The cost of the taxes, property taxes, especially, which are keep on going through the roof. The cost of electricity in the state of New Jersey, there was the PSEG raising on PSEG here, but JCPL and the BPU raising the rates astronomically, almost double what we were paying a month or two before. I think from that perspective, he'd be very good. I think from the perspective, like I said before, for Jewish parents who send their kids to yeshivas and day schools, as far as the cost of tuition, he would opt in, as he told us, to President Trump's big, beautiful bill, which provides a school scholarship fund, which is the first time ever on the national level, and governors have to opt in. And he said he would. I think he'd be very good as far as anti-Semitism. He stands up for the Jewish community. Unfortunately, there are a lot of anti-Semitic acts here in New Jersey. It only goes up every year, and we need somebody in charge that's going to put his hand down, the foot down, I should say, and put an end to this, or at least try to knock it down as much as possible. Because after we see what's going on in the world with political incidents like the shooting, the killing of Charlie Kirk just a week ago, we're in a very negative climate, especially with all the marches and parades and demonstrations against Israel. That has really risen the level of anti-Semitism in our state, and we need somebody at the helm that's going to work on making sure that doesn't go any further than it has, and try to get rid of it as much as possible. And lastly, this is what he calls his relationship with Israel, his support of the state of Israel, which is important to many of us in the Jewish community, especially after what happened the last 2 years. And we have in the state, we have the IRA definition. I believe it's almost passed in the state house, which I'm sure he would sign. Well, he's not going to be the governor if it passes this session, but if it doesn't, I'm sure he'll make sure it does next year. And what he called, we have the BDS bill, anti-BDS bill, which I think he was in the assembly when it passed almost unanimously back in 2016. And I think he'll be very supportive. Like I said, he went to Israel, he met with the prime minister, he met with people in government, and that's a guy that he's done a lot compared to his opponent, who I don't think has gone to Israel during this campaign. I don't know how much that his opponent has reached out to the Jewish community. People I speak to haven't had the opportunity yet to meet with her. She hasn't asked us for any meetings. His opponent, which I understand probably based on her progressive views and her allies in the state house, and more importantly in Congress, would probably vote no to tuition vouchers, scholarships, I should say, on the federal level, and that's up to the governor to make that choice. So I'm not so sure. And she also says she wanted to overthrow Netanyahu. It's time to get him out of the government. I don't think the governor of the state of New Jersey should have any say in who the leader of the state of Israel is. A democratic state that's been democratically elected by his constituents. It's not for her to say, or for anyone else to say, that for that matter, who should be running Israel or not. So I think Jack really stands apart on several key issues that affect the community, and I think he will be a great person in the state house.
I think you said very well about Netanyahu. People have varied views on Bibi Netanyahu, but he has been democratically elected, democratic with a small d. And he has to be respected for that. His office has to be respected. My own view, I've been critical of him because of some of the corruption cases that have made allegations against him. But as a wartime leader, I think he did the job. I don't know if anyone else could have gotten Israel through this crisis starting on October 7th the way Bibi Netanyahu did. He's not a warm and fuzzy guy. You don't survive. I have experienced Israeli politics firsthand. I'll tell you a humorous story is when I was working in state government under Governor Whitman, the Israel Commission fell under my supervision. And we had a shaliach in Israel. He was Michael Reiner, who was very familiar with the federations here. The federations were always utilizing him. He would give excellent tours. When he'd go to the state, I almost said state house, when he would go to the Knesset, he knew it was like the state house in the sense that when I go to the state house, I know everybody. When Michael Reiner went over to the Knesset, he knew everybody there. Well, people like Uzi Landau were reaching out to him, Shimon Peres. They were all, he knew everybody. So I got to see Israel firsthand with him. But one of the things that struck me is we have very polarized politics here. Israel goes through tough periods, but there's some saving grace there. I don't think it ever gets as bad as it is here in terms of polarization. I'll tell you why. We went into the Knesset, and there were two people arguing with each other in the most vile way. I know Hebrew to Dublin. I don't know it so well to speak it. But I'm sitting there watching these two members of the Knesset really go at it. I mean, I thought they were going to take a swing at each other. And then we go into the Knesset cafeteria, and these two guys are sitting down together, schmoozing and laughing. Now, and that's not unusual for Israel. But it's a very fiery, not in a bad sense, but people express their opinions. People feel passionate. But the Israeli democracy works, and I think that one of the things that you're capable of doing, you've gone on tours of Israel. When you would take office holders over, Josh Pruzansky is capable of giving them a good inside view, and not just going over as a tourist.
Well, I'll tell you, Alan, now that you mentioned that, in New Jersey, I also think it's very congenial. The State House, Democrats, Republicans, it's not what you see on the national level in Washington. I think
Right.
they get along with each other. They like you said, they joke around after they get off the floor. They go and they schmooze with each other and they go and drink with each other, whatever it is. I don't think that type of attitude that you see is pervasive in Washington, D.C. is the same as over here in Trenton, which is why I think it's also important for a guy like Jack, who was a legislator for a few years, to be that person to lead the state house because he understands how it works in New Jersey. As a congresswoman, his opponent was in a very polarized situation for many years. I mean, the Democrats, Republicans are at each other's throats over there. And I think it's not just in the Capitol. I think outside as well, and that's just leaking. It's flowing down to the rest of the state of the nation, where so many people are now at each other's throats. There's no talk, there's no dialogue. That's what what is it? Ben Franklin said that politics is the art of dialogue, an art of compromise. Politics, there's no compromise anymore on the national level. When do you see them compromise? It's either this way or that way. There's no in between like it used to be. Not as far, not 20 years ago. And I think in New Jersey, it's a whole different environment. So it's good to have, in my opinion, a person who's used to working together with the other side as a leader, rather than somebody who's used to being a severe and critic and opponent of the other side. I don't. I hope it doesn't flow down as she would win, but I'm hoping Jack will win and won't have to deal with that.
Well, I think you're right on the money. Jack is very good at communicating with people who are often on the opposite side of him on issues, but he looks forward to dialogue. I've never seen him really get angry at someone. I've known him pretty well now for over a decade. I've never seen him really explode at anybody or do anything like that. And he is known to be a policy guy. He's a guy that lives for government, wants to take an active role, believes he can improve the state. But he really is a deep thinker. And if someone has a better way of building a mousetrap and they go to Jack Ciattarelli, they'll want to hear him out. They'll want to hear him out. And I think that with this kind of communication in an era, we're living in an era of real, not just polarization, but angry polarization. I think Jack can bring a good climate to Trenton. It's going to be close. I think that by the time it's over, you and I will have more gray hairs than we already have. But I think he can win it. I noticed one thing about the poll that was interesting. He's ahead in two areas that are pretty vital. I mean, I look these polls that poll that many people, 11, 1,200, are by definition usually flawed polls. But there are two statistics that stood out in the Quinnipiac poll. Number one was in terms of measuring enthusiasm, Jack is way ahead. Cheryl's backers were not enthusiastic at all. Now, that's important for turnout. Enthusiasm really is the key indicator of turnout. The other thing is one of the issues where he did two issues he did very well. In fact, he was ahead of Cheryl. One was on real estate taxes, and the other was on utility costs. I think independent voters and undecided voters are going to look primarily at those two issues. So that should help Jack out a great deal. Now, you're having a function on October 22nd. Tell us a little about it, because I would urge my listeners to go. It should be a great night.
I appreciate that. But before I get to answer that question, I have one more thing to point out. In that same poll, there was
Sure.
a number that Jack's leadership numbers were below his opponent. But I will say this, and I'll tell you about Jack as an individual, as a human being, and as a mensch. Last year, around this time of year, I was in Lakewood to go to what's called the Arbominum Shuk, the four species that we use on the
Right.
holiday of Sukkot, the lulav, the etrog, the dasim, and arovas that we purchase. And it's always a big event a few days before the holiday. When I got there, just got off the phone with my wife, and she was telling me about my mother-in-law. May she rest in peace. So they at that right then, she just got a call from Israel that she was what do you call it, declining very quickly, and it's just a matter of time. So I walked into the shook up, as they say. And I walked in there and I see a big crowd on the other side of the shook, that of this big outdoor area. So I walk to the other side to see what's going on. And I see Jack is there, Jack Ciattarelli, surrounded by the guys who usually follow him around from Lakewood and other places. And there's a photographer and the whole thing, and he's just talking to people. He's holding a lulav, he's holding an esrog, he's talking to people. He sees me, I say hello to Jack. He pulls me aside. He said, "Are you okay?" "What do you mean?" He says, "You don't look good. You don't look like yourself. Are you okay?" I told him, yeah, well, something wrong with my face. It's just, "Oh, yeah, you're okay, okay." The fact that he noticed I wasn't looking myself, right, tells me so. And I don't, how many times have I met Jack before that? 10 times, 15 times, that he would even know how I, look. Shows me about this person as an individual. He cares for everybody. He
He is a
notices these
caring person. Yes.
and other people didn't talk about it. My friends didn't say nothing to me. Jack, pull me over, ask how I'm doing. That's leadership. And that's the type of person we need in the State House. So we're doing an event on October 22nd here in the Edison Highland Park community to invite Jack to a town hall meeting. We're going to bring him in. He's going to talk about his policies and everything else that people can hear about it straight from his mouth. And it's a few weeks before the election. I hope to have a very large crowd there at this event because we want to, get the momentum. Hopefully by then the momentum is really at a high pitch. And we want people to go out and vote for him. Just this week, I sent out an email to people who moved into our community. New, a lot of people are always moving in here. Kids are turning 18. They got to go out and register to vote. If they live someplace else, we want them to go out and register to vote so they can vote for Jack. Every vote counts in these types of elections. He only lost by 3% last time, and so it's going to be a close race, and we have to get him over the top. So this is something that's an event that hopefully will generate that enthusiasm, get people out to the polls. But if they're not registered to vote, they can't vote no matter how enthusiastic they get. So that's an important thing everybody should understand and should realize. And if you moved in here from a different community, different state, get out there and register.
Is the event definitely going to be at Ortora in Englewood? I'm not Englewood, excuse me, Edison.
I
I'm
hope that,
having a night of confusing letters.
yeah, we hope that's the place, and we'll get more into the location later. But if people have any questions about it, they could reach out to you. You can reach out to me.
I
And
want to mention in every broadcast we're going to have. I'm trying to do what I can to stir up interest in the crowd.
sure, sure.
I would also hope that there are people who are not from the Orthodox community who come because I think unity of the Jewish people is very critical right now. We're going into a very uncertain era. We have division in our own community. We have to face an enemy in Hamas that is determined to commit a genocide of Jews without any question. And we need a sense of unity. We need a sense of common purpose. So I think it's great that the Orthodox community has initiated this. I hope I'm going to try to get some people there who are not Orthodox. One of the reasons is I find that people in our own community have misconceptions about what Orthodoxy is. And when they find out what it is, some of them are attracted and even become members of the Orthodox community. So when you have a good Orthodox event, and this is going to be a good Orthodox event, I think it's helpful that you have people who are not from the Orthodox community. Another reason is the Orthodox are doing something in this election. They are really working it, which is great. And I hope it encourages other sections of the Jewish community to work because we all have similar interests. And if we don't take care of each other, what's the saying? If I'm not for myself, who am I for? We got to be for ourselves at this very difficult time.
Which is very disturbing because if you look at across the pond in New York with the mayoral race with Mamdani, how many Jewish people have decided to give their support to the mayoral candidate who is very dangerous for our community, who has made statements and hasn't backtracked on them. And it's another thing that Jack didn't endorse him, but somebody, his opponent, did. And it's again, we have to stick together, as you say, as a community. It's a shame that there's so many Jews in New York that are voting the other way. And I hope in New Jersey they will realize, and not that I'm saying that Jack's opponent is anything like Mamdani, but I think it's important that we have our supporters in well in those seats of power and making sure that we're what we need is going to be provided for us, and not to put somebody in there who's going to get rid of the police, who's going to arrest Netanyahu, who's going to take away remove the IRA definition of anti-Semitism from New York City. That's not what we want here. It's not what we need in New Jersey. New Jersey is a much better place than that. And I'm hoping everybody comes out to show their support for Jack. And if God forbid he does, Mamdani wins in New York, we welcome a lot of New Yorkers who want to come out. Welcome here to New Jersey because hopefully we'll have a great governor and will be a great place to raise your kids.
Well, I think they will. A number of Orthodox families who feel under danger with the Mamdani administration, I think a number of them will move over here. And I think it's going to be up to us to make sure that they're treated fairly, that they have proper provisioning, and that they don't experience the kind of anti-Semitism, and not only anti-Semitism, but outright discrimination when they go to buy houses and when they are trying to afford their kids going to school. I'll tell you what has struck me about the affordability issue in New Jersey. It's tough to live an affordable life here. But it's even more tough to live an Orthodox affordable life because of the cost of the yeshiva. You have to buy certain things, for household goods that are used in ceremonies, things of this nature. So the Orthodox way of life is not cheap. Well, let me ask you this. I came to the Orthodox way of life in my late 20s, early 30s. And it struck me at that time that the community was really increasing in wealth. But there had to be a time, your late father would have been expert on this, when things were not so rosy, when to be Orthodox, a lot of people couldn't afford it. Do you remember days like that? I'm curious. Talking to you, I get a good history.
Yeah, and my father, together with my grandparents, owned a grocery store in the Bronx on Light Avenue. And then another grocery store opened up next door and knocked him out of business. And my father had to make a living. He had two jobs. One was with the city of New York. Another one, he had another side job, part-time job in the evening. And my mother had two jobs just to be able to pay our tuition and to make sure we could go to yeshiva and get a good Jewish education. Groceries then, like groceries now, inflation was high. I remember in those days in the 70s when when interest rates like 17, 18%, which is great with your savings account. But if you had a house and a mortgage, I can't imagine paying 18%, even
I
7%.
remember those days too.
Yeah, it was out of control. And it was difficult, but they made it through, and thank God they see the fruits of their labors. And again, we talk about that. We talk about the big beautiful bill and the ability for families, Jewish families, Catholic families, and Muslim families, anybody else who sends their kids to non-public schools, to get this the scholarship, the availability of a scholarship to help defray the cost of their children's tuition is a major game breaker for the Jewish community. And if you live in a state where your governor is not going to opt in, you're not going to get a penny. I don't think New York and New Jersey, I mean, I could be wrong, but I don't think I will ever give a state voucher or a state scholarship for schools, non-public school tuition. The teachers' unions here are very, very powerful. And I don't think there's any government or legislature that's ever going to say yes to that. So the only option you have right now, if you live in New York and New Jersey, is to make sure you get that federal bill. And if the only way to get it is that your governor is going to go for it. Will Governor Hock will go for it? I don't know. Based upon her recent decisions, who knows where she's going to go with
I'm
it.
not sure what she'll do. I'm really not.
I don't think Mikey Sherrill will do the same thing either. I don't think she's going to at this point.
I don't think Mikey's ever going to opt in.
Yeah. So then if
I
we
don't
don't
think
get a
there's
guy
any
like
way.
Jack in power and as governor of the state of New Jersey, we're not going to get it here either. So it's important for our community who live here now to do it. And it's important for those in New York, if they see things are going the way they're going, to really seriously consider moving across the bridge to New Jersey.
Well, I certainly agree with you on that, and all of us will work together to try to ease the way. But let me ask you this. One thing that the folks in Lakewood do not get enough credit for, they really know their politics. I'll tell you, when When I got into the game, I came in through the policy window. I was a senior policy advisor to Speaker High Time dealing with education matters. But when they started using me for campaigns and I would go down to Lakewood, they knew all the issues. But not only that, this was something that I wasn't used to. They knew how to work with people of other faiths who may have similar views. And the opt-in bill is the perfect example of it. I would think that Catholic students who or Catholic parents who want their children to go to a Catholic school, they should be strongly supporting this. Let me ask you this: you have a pretty good knowledge of the political landscape. Is any of this kind of cooperation going on between Jewish and non-Jewish groups to get this advanced and to get the regulations done and get the show on the road?
Absolutely. I mean, when I first started in politics, working I know, as a Jewish liaison in Trenton back in 2008, my first and still very close friend was from the Catholic conference, Dr. George Corwell, who's still doing it and running the education department for the
Right.
Catholic conference, which encompasses all the Catholic schools in the state. And definitely have to have those relationships. You definitely have to have those coalitions. I remember the Black Ministers Conference with what's their bishop now, Reggie Jackson.
Richard Jackson, yes.
We worked with the Muslim schools, we worked with the independent schools, the Protestant schools, and we had a whole coalition of people. And they met. There's a non-public school committee that meets, I think, once, 3, 4 times a year, and they work together on issues. And through that common, not the common coalition based on those goals that we all seek to achieve, it's been very successful. When we got the school security bill passed here in the state of New Jersey, it was the first new bill in 20 years. Chris Christie government was then governor. He signed it. That today provides extraordinarily amount, about $200 per student to make sure they're secure, which is the argument we made, is that no students are different than other students. Public school students and non-public school students are both residents of the state of New Jersey. They both need to be protected and safe. And there's no reason why a public school child gets 175 and there was no money going for the non-public school child. And that was a coalition that we worked on together to get that. And now it's been very, very helpful to many of our schools. So I believe they're working together on this as well. I'm not there anymore as I used to be. So I don't know the day-to-day thing, but I'm more than more than sure and confident that these coalitions are still in place and still working together, and hopefully they will succeed in having that school scholarship brought to the state of New Jersey.
Well, somebody made the point at the meeting in Somerville the other day that an Orthodox family is really paying twice for education. They're paying their property taxes go to finance the public education system, and then they're paying for themselves to send their children to school. Now, an Orthodox family that's doing that is actually benefiting the public because it means less of a burden on the public schools. I don't think that previously they got enough credit for that, but it seems now, at least I had the sense from the meeting that I was fortunate to attend with you, that there's a greater awareness of what has to be done, that the message has to get out, that this is a bill that is not just going to benefit Orthodox Jewry, but it's also going to benefit sectarian and schools of other faiths. And that's a good thing for America. That's a great thing for New Jersey, in my view.
I mean, maybe public school kids could also, I mean, they might be involved in the bill as well. And public school families have expenses outside of, the property tax. It was Jack
Sure.
Jack Ciattarelli made that comment. And he said there's three things. One is our real estate taxes, which pay for the local public schools, our state taxes, which pay for the entirety of the public school system throughout the state, and the tuition, like you said, that we pay for our own kids. But public school kids also they have to, if they want to join teams, they have to get uniforms, they have after school programs, all these things that also cost parents out of pocket money. So really, it's not just the non-public school community that needs this thing passed. It's also the public school community. And we are. And the fact that Jack said that, like I said, he was the first gubernatorial candidate or governor to ever make that statement publicly. And I appreciate his honesty in doing that. And like he said, he will sign that bill. He will opt in if he's elected governor. I think it'll be great for every citizen, every student in the state of New Jersey.
I agree, and I would take what you said one step further. I thought it took enormous courage for him to come out for that. I'll tell you why I say that. When I was working in the legislature, I was a senior policy advisor on education, as I mentioned before. the NJEA was so powerful that every time there was some school choice bill where it wouldn't even involve private schools, where people could make a choice of what public school they wanted to go to. And we had some legislation that was meant to ease that. And we also had some charter school legislation. But the NJEA made it so difficult to pass any measures like that. And I don't think they were serving the public well. I understand that their job is to serve the teachers well, and that's fine and good. I'm a believer that teachers should receive ample salaries. We need the most qualified people teaching. But this held back reform for a number of years, and I think that where Jack is going to make the difference as governor, he can lead public opinion, and he can arouse public opinion to get behind a measure such as the big beautiful bill, and also to make education more affordable through the scholarship program. I think he's going to really have an impact on New Jersey society with that.
And it's amazing because it doesn't cost the state a penny. It's all federal money. So when they're
That's
saying
right.
this bill, and it's not well, it is tax credit, so but people have to put money into the pot in order to get these scholarships. So there has to be scholarship organizations collecting money from people. I believe it's a maximum of $1,800 per family, or that's they're still figuring out whether it's person or family that can give that money. And that's the max where it caps out. But it's really getting the money back since the tax credit. If a person puts $1,800 into the scholarship fund, they get an $1,800 tax credit, not a tax what's it called again? Where they get
Deduction.
deduction, not a deduction, but a credit, a dollar for dollar credit. So it needs people to put money into it. It doesn't have to be only parents, it be grandparents, be uncles, aunts, be anybody who has any sense of desire to help education to put money into that account, and they'll get their money back. And the more money that's in the pot, the larger the scholarships are for the children. So I think it's a great bill, which doesn't cost the state a penny. So I don't know why any governor would opt out unless they were forced to opt out by some
Only
entity.
because of fear. Only because of fear.
Yeah.
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 Look, I have seen what the NJA, you're familiar with New York, AFT in New York. If they want to, first of all, if they want to knock some politician off in terms of forcing him to leave office, being defeated for reelection, they're a force, not always a good force.
Yeah.
And at the same time, when it comes to legislation, reformist legislation, they're in the state capitol. I'm sure Albany's no different. I actually spent some time in Albany and saw some of that. But in New Jersey, where we are a very heavy lobbied up state, all these special interest groups are going to be there. But I think Jack is going to stand tall, and he has the gravitas, he has the force that he can lead us in the right direction on measures like that.
I hope so. He seems to be a very honest individual, man who's very true in his convictions. He really feels it. He doesn't just say it. He thought everything out. His policies, statements are all thought out. They're not made off the top of his head. You saw his speech today or yesterday where he laid out his policy. He's been thinking about this for almost 8 years, so he knows exactly what needs to be done. He's researched it. He's thought it over, and hopefully he'll be able to deliver.
I hope so, and I'm optimistic. But let's talk now about Josh Pruzansky, the man, the myth, the bio, and someone I'm quite frankly proud to know. How did you get? I'm going to use a term, and it's used for humor's sake. It's not meant as in any pejorative way. Years ago, there was a socialist writer. I grew up about one generation before yours. And when I was growing up, socialism was still very much alive in the Jewish community. I remember where there was a socialist Haggadah. My family wasn't socialist, but I had relatives who were. So it was that kind of political firmament, that kind of fermentation, basically uh, a real lively system of thought. And that was going on then. Now, of course, it's much different. The prevailing thought is much different. Now, I saw in your bio that you start off that you were an accountant, and that basically I think the skills you learned in accounting helped you to be an excellent manager of monies for eleemosynary institutions. Tell us a little. How'd you make the choice? Here you were going to be an accountant, and and you decided to really translated that into something that benefited the economy, something that benefited, as we say, Klal Yisrael. You did it, and that's why I have a lot of respect for you.
Thank you. I appreciate it. I'll be honest. The story goes like this. I was an accountant. I did it for a year. I was very good at it. Thank God. I have a quick mathematic analytical brain. It works. It works very well then. I remember stories of my great grandfather, who I'm named after, had a grocery store, and he would write the numbers down on the bag of all the items a person bought, and we would take his pencil out, boom, 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 add it up. It was always right. And my grandmother got to, my father got, and it came down to me. And thank God I inherited that as well. So, but after a certain while, about a year, I was told by one of my managers in the firm that I worked at, which I'm not going to mention the name, that we worked the place where we were working at that time. The client was a big secular Jewish organization, and they said, he calls me over one day on a Friday. He says, "Josh, I know you're from Orthodox. The partner on the account is also from guy. He knows you're from an Orthodox. They know you're from an Orthodox here in this organization. You know you're from an Orthodox, but it makes them uncomfortable that you're wearing a yarmulke in their building." So I heard that. This was in
It was time to leave.
1989. We're not talking about in the 50s and 60s. 1989. I said, "That's it. I'm out. I can't do this anymore. If I have to be worried about who I am and have to hide who I am, that's not the type of
It's amazing that you got this from Jews. It wasn't so much from people who
no,
weren't Jewish. I have found in my life that whenever I wore some type of Jewish garb, whether it's a kippah, whether it's if my tzitzis came out, anything like that, the non-Jews really respected me for that.
if I
Whereas, a lot of times I had resistance from Jews. Hey, you think you're better than us? You think you're holier than us?
yeah.
And that always disturbed me.
And
Yeah.
one of the clients was a Catholic church, one of the dioceses in the Bronx, and I walked in there, and I used to say I'm Cardinal Pruzansky. Right? It's my
Yeah, I
keep,
like that.
and
Well, we got those kippot that have Jack Ciattarelli on them, so you can have all types of
so
all different types of kippot. But
100%.
I really was disturbed by something I heard recently. My granddaughter goes to public school in New York, and she's in a gifted and talented program. It's like one of the top programs in the country. They're very worried that Mamdani, he's basically one of these leveling down types, and he may eliminate programs like that, which would be horrible, because these are future leaders of society, like my granddaughter, God willing, and they're trying to learn skills to further themselves in leadership.
Mhm.
But in any event, children are going to public school. They're trying to develop new skills and all the rest. And you have the phenomenon that now the bill's coming due. Okay, and the same thing with college tuition and everything else. I would think that it's high, and I commend the Orthodox community for this. But I think it's important that the entire Jewish community make common cause when it comes to affordability issues, when it comes to issues like education, and when it comes to even grocery bills. I mean, we all have to make the common cause of affordability together, in my view.
Absolutely. I mean, you look at the indoctrination of our kids in the public school systems. I mean, I remember here in Highland Park 5 years ago, 6 years ago, they were bringing in an Armenian author who wrote the book P.S. a children's book, P.S. for Palestine, and she was going to talk to 4-year-olds in the library about that book. I was for Intifada, and nobody said anything.
Oh my!
Got together, a group of us got up and said, how does the library do something like this? In a Jewish community like this, you're bringing in such a speaker, and we want our kids to hear this nonsense. And forget it, our kids. We want the other kids in the community to hear about that. So they're going to start talking about IS for Intifada and who knows what. And it was a big argument, big fight here in the community. Unfortunately, even amongst us Jews, there were some who were steadfast, like they are today, Jews for what do you call it, Jewish Voices for JVP for Palestine, and all these other groups, which unfortunately have chapters here in Highland Park, and we would have these arguments in front of the council. And it was a big. It was in the newspapers, and then at the end of the day, she came, but we got all the seats in the room, so she didn't have everything to talk to. But we see this indoctrination taking place in public school systems, the woke ideology and other things that they are trying to indoctrinate kids with, and that's why you see today college kids who have been indoctrinated with that type of philosophy and that type of those ideals over the last 15 years. Now you see the product of all that indoctrination. So yeah, I would hope that the entirety of the Jewish community would see the importance of going to a day school, having a day school education, Jewish education, and realizing that colleges are not the be all end all for our community anymore, especially Ivy League schools. You think, oh, my kids in Harvard and then NYU and Columbia and all these places. It's not the be all end all anymore. You don't want to send your kids there. Their lives are in danger. And that's because of this indoctrination that's been taking place in our school system. So you're right. Halavai, as we say, the entirety of the Jewish community should fund Jewish day school or non-public school education. Give the kids, even if they go to charter schools, where they don't have to have these ideals put into their heads. I think would be a greater option for them. But one day maybe we'll see that miracle happen, or maybe
I hope
Mashiach will come and we won't have to worry about it.
whatever works,
Yeah.
whatever works. But you started off as an accountant. You had that experience. You left. How did you go directly into Judaic affairs, so to speak?
Yeah, well, I first went to education. I worked at the Riverdale, there's a yeshiva in Riverdale Tells Yeshiva. I worked there as a dorm counselor while I was going to college at night to make some extra money.
Hmm.
And the Rosh Yeshiva, the dean, may he rest in peace, Rabbi Ausban, asked me if I would like to be the executive director. At that point, the executive director left. He needed somebody. He knew I had the accounting background for a year. We like to come in and help with the finances of the school. And I did it. I had a great time. Was there for almost 10 years. And then I came here to our community in Edison Highland Park to work at RPRY. And from there, I went into Jewish outreach with Partners in Torah. And then from there, I started. The Rosh Hashiva asked me to start another school, which we did in Roosevelt, which you Google that situation. That was also a big fight, which actually, that was what catapulted me to work in government because the yeshiva was attacked by the community as not being zoning issues and everything else, which were throwing everything in the book. It was a federal case, our Lupa case, don't have to get too technical. And we lost. Yeshiva now is in Muncie, thank God, thriving. But throughout that whole scenario, I was saying, who's talking for us in Trenton? Who's the person who's the organization? Who's out there in Trenton working with the legislature to let them know what's going on here? We just attacked incessantly, and there's nothing we can do about it. And that's why I started working for the Aguda. I worked for the Aguda for 3 years, then for the OU for another 6. And we had a presence. And thank God, after that, everybody was sending Jewish people to Trenton to represent the community. You have all these organizations now that do it. You have Reverend Richler, who we met from representing Chabad.
Yeah.
And we had coalitions with the Federation and what have you. Jake Toporek, a good man. And we saw that it made a difference. When I walked in, the first thing they said to me, "Hey, Rabbi," they would call me a Rabbi, Rabbi this, Rabbi that. So nice to see you. They had no clue who I was. They had no clue there were Jews anywhere besides Lakewood and the Chabad houses. They thought that was the entirety of the Jewish community. And we had to educate them, district by district, assemblyman, senator by senator, assemblyman, to let them know that the Jewish community is throughout the state. And we brought them to their constituents. We brought the constituents to them to let them know that they have somebody to stick up for and to vote for in their districts. And it was very effective. And thank God now we have so many people doing it, and we see the fruits of those labors. And I'm very proud of the fact that I had an opportunity to do it, and I wish everybody success and hope to see. To me, that big bull, and I'll tell you a brief story about the scholarship, tax scholarships. I don't know
Sure.
if you remember Rabbi Scherer, Rabbi Moshe Scherer.
Mostly sure, yes.
He was a icon back in the
I
day.
used to go. I'll tell you something. I used to go to. I did a good a favor once. I'll tell you after you're done. I did them a favor, and I got as part of, I got invited to their dinner every year. Now, some of the people I went with were Orthodox. That Aguda dinner was as serious as a heart attack.
Yeah.
Everyone was wearing black hats. The men were sitting separate from the women. But they had done a lot. I always supported the dinner because they had done a lot of good. I'll tell you the story once you're done, but because I know you work there. But what I did find with the Aguda is they did not just limit themselves to Orthodox or Haredi Jews. I had a relative who was having a Shabbos problem. She was a nurse, and they moved her time so that she would have to be Mechal Shabbos. She would have to break Shabbos. And it was a terrible thing. And I called up Shmuel Lefkowitz, really good man, very effective lobbyist. It reminds me a lot of you. You guys both really work it, and
I
you
remind you,
have goals.
I remind you of him.
What?
I remind you of him.
Oh, I realize that, but I have. Hey, listen, I have a pretty high view of you. Okay, so don't persuade me otherwise.
sorry.
Okay, no, I'm just kidding. But he got on, and I called him. He got some name. I think his name was Rabbi Beiser, who was an expert on.
Hey, rest in peace. Yeah,
Oh, he passed away.
that's
He
what.
was a
Yeah,
wonderful guy.
he was.
And this nurse was working at NYU. He solved the problem for me in about 5 minutes.
Yep, yep.
I can, but I think that a good, really, of the organizations you work for, it's funny. People would think, well, Alan, you're not a Haredi Jew, you're modern Orthodox. But I think that people have to be aware that, groups like Aguda have done so much good in terms of social welfare of people, and they've done so much good in terms of, excuse me, affordability issues, actually. So I have a pretty high view of them. But go back. I didn't mean to interrupt for so long.
No problem. It's your show. You can talk as long as as long as you
Yeah,
want.
but I like to give my guests the full reign.
Thank you. I remember you coming to a good board meetings back in the day.
Yes,
When you were in the EPA, you used to come in and give reports.
absolutely.
Yep. So I was yeah. So many years ago, probably 1987, I was 20, 21 years old. I was what's called the Pirche, which is the Good Youth Movement. I was a branch leader. And we had a branch leaders meeting in 84 William Street, which was then their headquarters. And Rabbi Scherer came to speak. And one of the guys is, they always like to chepper him, get him all riled up. But he was as calm as a cucumber. He answered this guy's questions. But he's looking for somebody to change the topics. I said, I don't know why I even said this. I said, Rabbi Scherer, what about tuition tax credits? In Washington was that they're working on it even back then. And he gave a whole discussion and explained it and everything else. Afterwards, I'm walking out the door with him. So I said, Rabbi Shar, what are the chances of that ever happening? That's ever passing? I was 21 years old, almost 40 years ago. And he says to me, and it's been all over the papers, they quoted this. He says, he doubts it's going to happen in his lifetime. And he even doubts it's going to happen in time for me to do it with my children. But maybe when your grandchildren go to yeshiva, it'll happen. And
Well,
that's
it's
what's
happening.
happening
He was a
right now. My
prophet.
grandchildren in yeshiva. So I said, I don't know, it wasn't a prophecy, but he really knew that it was going to happen. And was even more impressive, he knew it wasn't going to happen in his lifetime. He realized it's not going to happen when he's working on it. And he knew it's going to be a long process. And yet they're going to never stop working on it. You're talking about 40 years, and he probably started 10 years before that. It was a 50-year work, 50 years of work to get what they got now. It's
Well, he
amazing.
was he was a legend at Aguda. There was one story that involved Chuck Schumer. Everyone wanted to say the politically correct things when they would come to this dinner, but Chuck, I had a good relationship with him when I was at EPA, but I wouldn't call him a Talmud Chacham, put it that way. So he comes to the dinner, and yeah, and for the benefit of our viewers, there's a saying in Judaism, and if I get the literal translation wrong, you correct me, Josh. If you have a man who is a great scholar of Judaism and very learned, you will give the man's name, and then you will say Shlita. I think it means whether you live 100 years. And if the man's passed away, they'll say Zichrona Livracha. May he rest in peace. But these are appellations that are always given to Jewish scholars because they're so venerated. Well, Chuck Schumer comes in and he said, and then there was the great Moshe Sher Shlita. And everyone looked around. They said, they weren't expecting Techias Mason. They weren't expecting him. He'd been gone for about 10 years, but he was very, he knew people like Giuliani, for example. He really knew how to network, and he was very effective. But I think the benefit of that is people like yourself who are accomplishing things within the political system. I hope it has the effect of other young people who are going to, Yeshiva University or other schools, of maybe going into professional Jewish work to benefit the community because we need it.
Absolutely. I mean, you always worry, where's the next generation? But I think the next generation is starting to step up to the plate, at least financially. And hopefully there'll be some that will do it as a profession. And I see that in many organizations, young, energetic kids coming in and moving into the next generation of leaders for our community. And thank God we still have plenty of the old generation doing it today, and they should continue to do it with good health. And we should be blessed. Gosh, just keep on blessing us with the success at all levels of government and in our lives, and bless us with a great year. Like I say, the New Year is coming up next week. We should be blessed with a happy, healthy, and successful New Year.
Amen, be amen. You worked also at OU for a number of years. Was after you worked at a good? How did that
Yes.
work?
Yeah, when I worked at the Good and then I worked at the OU. I was their first state director of their state offices. New Jersey was the first state office, and after that, they saw it was working. They opened a New York office and a Pennsylvania office and a Florida office and a Maryland office, and they opened up offices across the country. As did the Good. The Good is constantly expanding, and
They
it's
have one of the finest lawyers I've ever met in Chaim Davidsby Bell.
oh yes,
He is, look, I'm a lawyer myself. I'm retired, but I still have my license. I still keep up with the law. And I read his works on abortion. Now, I'm not going to say what my position is, it's a little complicated, but he was definitely pro life, but he justified every word he said so powerfully. And
Mhm.
he did another thing which I thought was good. A lot of Jews are under the impression that abortion and somehow that Judaism approves of the practice. It does not. It does not. That abortion is viewed as the taking of a potential life, and as such, if the life of the mother is at stake, then you must have an abortion. But
Right,
nevertheless, it's something that is kept very, very strict standards and all the rest. And the idea is a woman can have an abortion if there's pain, but that pain can be emotional, whatever. The idea is to get rabbis involved. But I think that when Chaim David wrote that article, it was like a great thesis. At least it had the effect for those who read it, and I think a lot of people did. It made them aware of what the Jewish position is on abortion, and I thought that was very important.
and you mentioned Rabbi Zwiebel. Rabbi Zwiebel worked at a major law firm in New York City. He had a prestigious position, and he had a career ahead of him that he could have made millions and millions of dollars. But he gave it up because the good asked him to come on board. Rabbi Sher got him to come on board. He convinced him to come on board and be the lawyer for the good. And you talk about sacrifice. Rabbi Zwiebel has sacrificed, like I said, financially, millions and millions of dollars over his career. They
For
could have
sure.
made if he was still in law. But look at what he did with his talents. He really has brought the Jewish community's representation on the legal side up tremendously. And due to his sacrifice, other lawyers have begun to do that as well. And hopefully, an example that he set for future generations that you know what, sometimes it's not all about the money. Sometimes it's about doing the right thing and doing it for your community and doing it for your people.
I think no one could have said it better than you just did. That he also is one of the finest lawyers I ever met. I mean, he knew all not only the basics of law, but some of the most abstruse aspects of the law. He could answer the questions, yet he was always respectful of people. He had this great intellect, but he didn't make as if he was some superior. He had been blessed with a superior intellect. He didn't feel he was a superior person. He was very
Yep.
down to earth, and he was a man that did a tremendous amount of societal good. So,
And he
to
still
a good
is.
what?
And he still is. He's
Oh, I
still
know that, but I met people in your sector of the economy, in the professional Orthodox Jewish sector, and I met some of the most able people that I've ever met in my life, and I think that it's important that your story be told, that others who have worked in the I'm groping for the word, just the Orthodox professional sector doesn't sound right, but those who have dedicated their lives to help the Orthodox community with the family needs, with issues that are of general concern, I think that's a great thing. I remember some of them. There was one victory that a good one. If I get this wrong, please correct me immediately. It had to do with the way you would slaughter chickens, and the chicken had to be inverted. I remember there was a man from my shul in West Orange when I was living there who had been involved in the case. He was one of the lawyers. But this is something that would be hard just to get a lawyer off Wall Street to come in and take the case, although it's a very important Jewish law. But the Jews who volunteered, like almost all of them were Orthodox, who volunteered for a case like that, they did a tremendous amount of good, and it enabled people to take their kashrut seriously. It enabled them to comply in all respects with kashrut, and I was impressed with it. Not that that makes it a big deal that I'm impressed with it, but I think that people who find a way of combining religion with the social good of society, that's one of the highest goods.
which is why we're very privileged and blessed to live in the United States of America, a country that allows religious observance in every which way. You look at Europe right now, Jews can't shech, can't do ritual slaughter in Belgium. I think in other countries, a few other countries that exist as well. Bris Milah, circumcisions are outlawed elsewhere, and it's become a very difficult life for the Jews in Europe. And the fact that we don't have to worry about that here, God's help, ever have to worry about it here, or Shabbos observance, like you brought up the story before with the nurse, to be able to go to work 6 to 5 days a week and not have to work on Shabbos, not have to worry about it, or even working on Yom Tov or high holidays or any holidays, all these things, all these religious accommodations that we're able to enjoy in the United
We take
States.
it for granted, actually.
But it wasn't easy to get them, and guys
Yeah.
like Rabbi Zubel and at the Aguda and Nathan Diamond at the OU worked on it over the years, and thank God have been successful. It's a great thing, and that's why these organizations deserve to be supported by the Jewish community and applauded, and people should get involved. Just got to get involved. The more people that are involved, like politics. If a person walks in as one person to a legislator, that's one person representing however many. But if you walk in with a whole group of people and they see their constituents in front of their faces, they understand this is a community that needs to be worked with and to help them achieve get what they want. And that's something that those organizations have really taught us as a community. We've grown a long way, and we're very sophisticated on it. It's great.
Well, I may get the story wrong, but my understanding was that Aguda was one of the first groups during the horrible era of the concentration camps and Nazi domination of Europe that they actually went down to Washington to protest. And Roosevelt didn't want to talk to them, but they had an impact. They talked to members of Congress. And the point is, they were proud to be identified as Jews. And at the same time, they saw a duty to take care of their brethren, their brothers and sisters who were being exterminated in Europe. And that is a very noble tale for which I will always give a tremendous amount of credit.
There's video of
I'll
it.
tell you one thing about it. The way I have a humorous story on how they practice Hakar Satov. For the benefit of our listeners, that basically means appreciation. By the way, if I get any of these things wrong, you correct me.
You're doing
But
good.
thus far, I'm doing okay. But they in Lakewood, it was really a big deal how many children you could have, and there was a beautiful thing about that because we lost so many people in the Holocaust. So families were encouraged to have more children, and if you were unable to have children, it brought about a lot of social change. So there had been a story about me in the Jewish press that I was the highest ranking Orthodox Jew in the women administration, which was probably true. There's in states other than New York, the number of Jewish young people who get involved in politics at that level is somewhat limited. I wish it wasn't. I wish more people would learn about Josh Pruzansky and how you can make a contribution to both your faith and in the political system. But anyway, there was a story about me, and I get a phone call from Shmuel Lefkowitz. He said, it seems like you're doing a Kiddush Hashem. That's a service to the Lord. He says, I want to meet with you because we have this bill that is in the state Senate that would mandate that large companies, that their medical coverage, this is large companies, that their medical coverage provide for infertility treatment. And I thought it was a very word. I usually don't like mandates like that, but this was my people. There was no way I was going to say no to him. Okay. And I thought, you know what, this will be a very much a social good too, because if people are happy with their lives and they can, the state is helping them to afford this kind of care, you're making lives so much better. It's unbelievable. So I met with him. We got the bill going. Don DeFrancisco, who was the Senate president, a very close friend of mine at the time, was one of the sponsors. And eventually, the bill got passed right after, in between the time where Donnie took over as governor from Whitman and before Jim McGreevey came in. So we got this bill passed. I was away for a weekend, and it was around Purim time. I come back on, actually pre-weekend, I come back on a Friday, and there is at my front door, when I was living in West Orange, this big boat. It looked like a boat. And it was filled with all this shalach manas, all these Purim confections, all this candy. And it was just, I said, what am I going to do with all this stuff? So the first thing I did was call the Ethics Commission. And I said, I'm not supposed to accept gifts. I didn't ask for this. They said, don't worry about it, because that was not connected with your job at the Meadowlands. You were doing this as a private citizen who knows the value of government. Enjoy all those candies. And I said, well, I had enough candies to feed the whole block. But this was the greatest shalach manas I will ever get in my life. But it was all a result that the people at Aguda were appreciative people. They really cared about anything that would help the people, make Orthodoxy more affordable, and make it a more satisfying way of life. So the fact that you were associated so long with Aguda is another powerful mark in favor of Josh Pruzansky.
Oh, thank you. I work for every major Jewish organization, or at least Orthodox Jewish organization in America, and I'm allowed to talk about it. But it was a good experience working at all these organizations and seeing what they do for the Jewish community. And the good is just growing immensely. And that bill that you mentioned, the infertility bill, was a major accomplishment. I thank you for that as well, Alan. Many people use it. There's an organization, Boniola.
I got thank you letters from people. I said,
yeah, they named their kids Alan. You know how many Allens are in Lakewood right now?
Well, as long as they're Met fans, that's okay.
I can't guarantee that. But yeah, it's good. It's very good stuff. And you need people. That's what I'm saying. You need people in government. You need people from the community in government who know how to explain this to insiders and to get things moving in a very successful way. Which is why it's great that Gary Scher's an assemblyman and Avi Schnall is an assemblyman.
Absolutely.
To have a voice there inside the caucus is important. They explain the bills in ways that we can't, and they understand what the challenges are, and they work them out. And
watch my good friend Shlomo Shore. He's a comer.
He's great. Shlomo Shore is very good.
He's great.
He knows his
all
stuff
the time.
Yeah.
Well, this has been a fantastic show.
Thank you.
I have really enjoyed this. I think a show like this, as much as any shows I've done, serves an education function that people out there who are Jews learn more about their own community and the good that is done and all the stereotypes that are wrong about the Orthodox community. The Orthodox community is a caring community. It's a community of faith, and people like you have carried that message. So I thank you so much for coming on, but we got to get Jack Ciattarelli in. Okay.
With God's help.
What's that?
With God's help.
Bezrat Hashem. Yeah, I agree. And I have my kippah. I'm going to wear it on I wear it this Shabbos. Ask Jack for governor. People get a kick out.
You'll pick up 50 votes just like that.
If it works, it works. But again, Josh Pruzansky, I've had the good fortune of meeting your wife, who is a lovely and terrific person, and your children. You're a great citizen of Highland Park, where I live. Thank you so much for coming on the show. And to my listeners out there, this has been a wonderful hour. And if nothing else, if you learned what a man of faith can do, and with the skills he learned from the education system and how he benefits society, that's a great message. That's it for this show. And we're going to be having a lot of shows on the election coming up. You'll get some communication from me on that. Take care and have a good evening.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining us for the latest edition of Dynamic Political Centrism. Check back each week for our newest episodes, and you can catch past episodes online via YouTube and Spotify, and please subscribe to our Substack.